listeners like you. Please sit back, relax, and enjoy. This first question comes from Sky Guy 91. What flowers are used to make leis? An excellent question. Many leis seen in person and on screen look quite similar, and so there must be a common flower used to make them. Let's find out just what flower, or flowers, those are. It turns out that there are quite a few flowers that can be used to make a traditional Polynesian lei, the most common of which is this one. These are a type of orchid. Orchids are often used not just for their fragrance and beauty, but for their sturdiness and long shelf life. Pikake, or jasmine, is also popular in lei making, and especially common in wedding leis. Melia, or plumeria, is quite popular for its wide variety of colors. Tea leaf, while not a flower, is said to bring good luck, and so is popular for major life events like graduations. Tuberose, puamale, ginger, carnation, puakenikeni, tiare or gardenia, kika or cigar flower, maile, the list goes on. It seems that, technically speaking, a lei could be made with any flower, especially if it has significance to you or to the ceremony you're attending. In practice, the flowers that are chosen tend to be native or locally grown, have a bright color, pleasant fragrance, or interesting shape, and are durable enough to withstand both the process of constructing a lei and the wear and tear it will sustain while it is being worn. Mahalo for that wonderful question. This next question comes from Captain Hobo. What do other cultures say when people sneeze? Thank you so much for this question. This has been, by far, my favorite thing to research for this channel up to this point. It has led me to my favorite Wikipedia entry of all time. Response to sneezing. I do encourage you, dear listener, to go and check out this page for yourself, as it has some truly wonderful information on it. But you asked me the question, so I shall provide some answers. Now, I will not be embarrassing myself today by trying to pronounce the 100 or so different languages worth of post-sneeze remarks. This is partly because I do not know how to pronounce many of these languages, but it is mostly because the English language meanings are given on the same chart. Furthermore, many of the things we say in any language actually translate to have roughly the same sentiment. So I thought it might be better to simply give which sentiments are given most commonly, and then talk about a few uncommon practices. We'll start with the most common English language sentiment, bless you, or God bless you. This sentiment, or one very much like it, God forgive you, for example, is used in many, many languages. About 33 languages seen here have a meaning or interpretation that references God or blessing. The next most common seems to be health or be healthy. In my house, we say Gesundheit, the German version, or Salud, the Spanish version. For most other languages, if they don't mention God or some kind of blessing, they mention health. In fact, it's mentioned more frequently than the Lord, at around 52 languages seen on this list, referencing health or being healthy. Along those same lines, quite a few of the sentiments here imply health by wishing the sneezer a long life. The Vietnamese phrase can translate either to be healthy or live long, and Polish has several phrases, one of which means live 100 years. There are about 10 to 12 that mention some version of living a long life. There are also a few languages that alter what they say based on the age of the sneezer. For children, a few languages will say something like, may you grow tall, or may you grow up. Serbian has a phrase, "Go away, kitten," which they use because sneezes, especially children's, and cats' coughs sound somewhat alike. There are also a few languages that ask for forgiveness when sneezing. Often it is, "May God forgive you," but not always. If someone sneezes, the response in Yoruba is simply, "sorry." There are a few other languages or cultures that treat a sneeze as a truth detector. Croatian and Czech both have forms of this. When a person sneezes, you say, "It is true," or something like it, implying that whatever was said just before the sneeze has been proven true by virtue of the sneeze. One version of the Arabic response to sneezing translates to elation or thrill. Basically, they are saying, "How exciting," since sneezes tend to be sudden, loud, and convulsive. There are a few cultures that have alternative responses for people that are sneezing many times in a row. Most only count to 2 or 3, but here are a few. Ladino, "May you live," "May you grow," "May you flourish." Spanish actually has 2. In Spain, you might say, "Jesus, Maria, y Jose." But in Venezuela or Colombia, you might say, "Salud, dinero, amor," or health, money, and love. It's a little old-fashioned, but there is a French one as well. "To your wishes, to your loves, may they last forever." Turkish has, "Live long, live good, live 1,000. And Yiddish has, "To health and to life." In Dutch, after a person sneezes 3 times, you might say, "The weather will be nice tomorrow." Some languages wish the sneezer good fortune, like in Cantonese. There are a few cultures or languages that actually say nothing if a person sneezes. Japanese and Korean are perhaps the most well-known places for this occurrence. It is a Japanese superstition that when you sneeze, it means that someone somewhere else is talking about you. So someone nearby might comment on that. The only other thing that might be said in Japanese is, "Are you alright?" especially if that person sneezes many times in a row. Actually, the sentiment that someone might be thinking or talking about you is not wholly Japanese. One of the possible Navajo responses to a sneeze also suggests that you sneeze because someone else is talking about you. Finally, some languages simply ask if the sneezer is sick. I cannot thank you enough for that question. It really was just so much fun to comb through this list. May you live 100 years. This last question comes from young Donald. What is the difference between a farm and a plantation? Okay, so without looking into it at all, my gut feeling is that the difference has to do with what is grown at each. So if you only have animals, it's a ranch. If it only has plants, it's a plantation. And any mix of either makes it a farm. Now, let's see how wrong I was. Oh, this is actually a little like the roads thing we talked about a few weeks ago. Technically, a farm is any area of land that is devoted primarily to producing food and other crops. These crops can be just about anything: vegetables, fruit, dairy, pigs, poultry, biofuel, and fibers. The specific terms we've developed for these farms help us to identify which thing they are growing, making, or farming. So, a ranch, as I mentioned earlier, is a type of farm that specializes in raising cattle and other grazing animals. Orchards are farms that specialize in the growing of trees and shrubs for fruits and nuts. Feedlots are farms used for intensive animal farming. Hobby farms are small holdings, which is another term for small farms with no expectation of being a primary source of income. In more modern times, the term farm has even been attached to more industrial terms, like wind farms for harvesting wind power to produce electricity, and to fish farms. question. A plantation is a type of farm that focuses on growing cash crops. These are crops that are grown to sell for profit, as opposed to being used to feed your livestock or your family. Usually, a plantation also focuses on growing only a single crop, though that is not necessary to be labeled a plantation. Thanks for that great question. Thank you again to Sky Guy 91, Captain Hobo, and Young Donald. If you would like to have your question answered in a video, leave it in a comment below this one. If you would prefer to ask your question a little more privately, you can email me your question at questionsandasmr@gmail.com. Don't forget to like and subscribe for more questions like these every week. Thanks again for listening.